Welcome to the partnership path in real life. Ever felt the gap between theory and reality? We're here to bridge that. Dive into real stories, real challenges, and real successes from professionals just like you in the partner and channel management world. Each episode is a journey, a lesson from those who've walked the partnership path, faced the challenges, and reaped the rewards. Whether you're a seasoned partner manager or just starting your journey, this is where theory meets practice. Ready to see the real side of partnership? Let's get started.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to the show, Steve. I'm glad to have you here on the partnership path in real life. We haven't met before, so before we get going too fast, tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been working with partners.
Sure. So I'm a partner development manager at Microsoft. I've been working with partners for almost 3 years. Before that, I
Okay.
was an enterprise seller at Microsoft, so I've been on both sides of the table.
Oh, yeah. You and I have a similar background. That's my background as well, enterprise selling. So this partner world is it's a challenging environment, right? I think those of us that grew up in direct sales think, oh, partner stuff, how hard can that be? But then you get there and it's a lot more complicated than you expected, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I think especially with the multi-dimensional nature of all of our partners are also our customers, so it
yeah,
makes it even more complicated that way.
for sure. Well, listen, this what we want to do in this episode is just talk a little bit about what you heard in the episode on business reviews, doing external business reviews with partners,
hmm
and kind of get some pragmatic advice from you for our listeners about how you do it. So let me just start by asking you, when you listen to that episode, what are some of the things that kind of jumped out at you or kind of made you react when you listened to it?
Yeah, it resonated with me quite a bit as I'm actually in the process of planning for a QBR with one of my partners. I think it's coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks, and there were a lot of things actually that you talked about that jumped out at me, and um, I think it started with your counterpart on the partner side being on the same side of the table as you
Yeah,
in that QBR, because I feel like that hasn't always happened in QBRs I've been in where it felt like I was
yeah,
presenting my perspective instead of having it be a shared view.
yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, right? Because I think that's a big adjustment for a lot of people to make sometimes.
hmm
How do you do it? Like, what does that look like in a super pragmatic way? How do you get your counterpart to be on the same side of the table with you?
Yeah, I think you have to start as early as you can in preparing for that QBR. They tend to, 13 weeks is not a long time, and they tend to sneak up on you, and you feel like you just
Yeah,
finished the last one when you start trying to get ready for the one that's coming up after it. So getting your agenda, your thoughts together, get slides together that you can use as a framework, and share them directly, with the partner and collaborate on them in real time, so
yeah,
that it truly is a joint message.
yeah. In your experience of doing that, is there the opportunity, and that's kind of a false word to use, but is there conflict sometimes in terms of how we're going to present this? Like, hey, look, this shines bad on me, or it shines bad on you or your organization. So, how do you kind of work through some of those scenarios?
Yeah, it does happen. Typically, what I've done is, on both sides, we both have an executive sponsor for this partner that I'm thinking about, and myself and my counterpart we will both do effectively a dry run with
Yeah,
that person, so that there are no major surprises when we all get together as a group, and sometimes coming out of that prep call, there's some feedback from one executive or another of, hey, maybe you don't want to say it this way. Maybe that makes us look bad or makes us look like we're pointing the finger.
yeah. That's good. I love that concept of the dry run. Kind of each of you taking it away and making sure that it's going to resonate the way you need it to resonate internally, and then come back together for your final draft. I like that.
hmm
Well, what else? What else jumped out at you in that episode that is worth talking about?
I like the idea of asking for help first. I feel like that's typically you see that at the
Yeah.
end, which I think you talked about, and why save it, if that's what you truly want to get out of the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness for Tony, my host in that in that episode, for bringing that up, because it was one of the things that had slipped my mind as well as we were walking through it. And I think in our content we even have the ask at the very end, right? That you got to kind of go through all the status, and then the ask is at the end. But I think it's super
Hmm.
good advice in real life that
Hmm.
you gotta move that up, right? You got to be ready.
Hmm.
In particular, if your executives switch things up on you, right? If
Hmm.
you think you got 30 minutes, but then you get in the room and you've
Hmm.
only got 5, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or they just completely sidetrack on one of the earlier items in the agenda, which certainly tends to happen.
Yeah. So another really good point, Steve. I'd love to get your perspective on kind of the rat hole issue, right? Because sometimes in these reviews, executives can latch on to something that wasn't even important in our mind, and they can
Hmm.
drive us down a rat hole pretty quickly. How do you
Hmm.
manage that? What's your advice to the guy who's never done a QBR before coming in? How does he or she prepare for that?
Yeah, it's hard to deal with. I think it depends on who's doing it and what their communication style is. Sometimes it's very hard even to break in at all when somebody really gets going. But to
Yeah.
try and let it get out what where they're going, and acknowledge that they want to go to this place, but um, try as quickly as you can to table that, because you do have other things that you have to get to that are interesting to everyone, and maybe not just this one person.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope the dry run process would
Hmm.
sort of bubble those types of potential rat holes up pretty quickly, right? That we could head those off in advance through the dry run as well.
Yeah, usually, yeah. I once had an executive, we asked to give, for them to start the meeting with just a state of the business, and I swear he talked for 20 minutes about, just how their quarter went and everything, and it was way more information than anyone wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'll probably remember in the training asset itself, we spend a lot of time talking about how to be succinct, right? How to
Hmm.
make sure to get to the point. Don't tell the story. Tell the impact and the results. And
Hmm.
sometimes we get a lot of requests that we should be putting executives through that same training, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes executives are the worst offenders of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
Well,
Hmm.
all right. So let me let's just let's close out with one other question for you, which is I kind of hinted at this a second ago. If we've got some listeners that are new to this role, that are new to doing QBRs, or maybe new
Hmm.
to this way of doing QBRs, do you have some advice? Do you have some kind of pointers that you would recommend for the individual
Hmm.
who hasn't done it before?
Yeah, I think it helps to have, if you look at the metrics or the goals that you're trying to track, which you've probably defined in your strategic partnership plan or another asset,
Yep.
those are good to make sure that you're reviewing those during these QBRs, so you know where you stand, and to make sure that the actions that you're tracking are actually support those objectives. Because otherwise, they're just a random list of things that you're doing, which you don't know why you're doing those things unless you can tie them back
Yeah.
to a real objective.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's one of my, as an outsider looking in, I get brought into reviews and account reviews and partnership reviews and business reviews all the time. And man, it is
Hmm.
my pet peeve where, people forget why they're doing what they're doing, right? That if you
Hmm.
can't link it, the people you're presenting
Hmm.
to aren't going to be able to link it either. And they're not, and that's just a
Hmm.
recipe for disaster. So I love
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Awesome. Super helpful, Steve. Well, anything else you want to give to our listeners before we let you get back to actually doing your real job and working with partners every day?
No, that's all. I think that we covered everything that stuck out to me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Steve. I really appreciate it, and super appreciate your input and your advice to our listening community. Thanks a lot.
Sure, no problem. Thanks, John.
Thank you for joining us on the partnership path in real life today. Remember, the real world tests theories and creates leaders. Don't stop here. Subscribe, learn, and grow with us. Let's make every experience count. Until our next real life story.